So Conversion Lab for 10th of June. And today we'll be looking at capability number 6, which is audiencing. And I'll head over to my trusty presentation here. Oh, crap. I should have said capability number 5, audiencing. And let's move on to audiencing here. All right, so I'm going to share my screen now, and let's get the whole thing going. All right, hopefully you are looking at the right screen, right? Your capability 5. Hopefully you can all see my screen, and I'm not sharing the wrong stupid screen like I did a few weeks ago.
No, all good.
Okay, all right, awesome, cool. All right, so audiencing. This is probably the most important section of this whole capabilities presentation that I've been doing. It's the one that most people pay least amount of attention to, but if you were to focus on this thing, you will most definitely have quite a lot of you'll get to understand a lot about where the money is being made in terms of the type of people that you're working with. Normally, when you're looking at conversion numbers, and you're looking at funnel types, you're looking at broad numbers. You're like, oh, you know what, I spent $100, I made 200, therefore my funnel's okay. But what if you realized that of the $100 that you're spending money on, all of the money that you sent, or the $200 revenue that you made, only came from 5% of the traffic? And what if you could identify those people and as a result get rid of the other 95? All of a sudden you'd have a very highly profitable, rather than double your money, you'd be doing it 5 over 200 divided by 5. So that's what this allows you to do. There was one project that I worked on where they wanted to take this to the nth degree, and they kept going back and saying, okay, who else is in my audience? And we keep stripping out. We use an old technique, which those of you who've been around for a while on the internet, Perry Marshall used to teach this thing called pill and stick, but there you would pill and stick a keyword. So one keyword is working, so you put in its own ad group, and therefore you'd only have a single keyword ad group, or a SCAG as they used to call it back in the day. And so it's the same concept, except now you're doing it with clusters or groups of people. Obviously, theoretically, you would have a audience of 1, but that's not scalable. So you'd find these clusters of people, and you separate them out, and you give them their own funnel. And over time, what you'd realize is that you have multiple funnels that are making you money rather than just one. The one person I worked with there, I believe they were in the UK, in the roofing space or something, or mold space. I don't know, one of those kind of markets. And we were able to reduce their traffic costs by about 70%. With no impact on the revenue on the other side. And this was they had a call center with lead gen, so it was an internal campaign. Generally speaking, that does not appeal to lead gens, which is, I guess, most of you on the call, is because obviously you drop the volume of leads you're sending, but then all of those leads has a high conversion. So what you're doing is you're removing the leads that don't make money, and you're only sending leads to the sales team that actually make money. Now, if you're doing it with a client, then obviously, you rather than selling them 100 leads and only 10 buy, and they're happy with it, you send them 100 leads and 90 buy. But that would mean that your price would have to increase significantly to be compensated for, which is why there's not a lot of people who are selling leads are necessarily wanting to do that sort of thing, because you over optimize on their side, but then you're not going to get paid for it. So this strategy works really, really well for internal teams, or where you have some sort of a back-end commission coming through. Then that way you'd obviously be compensated for from on the back-end sale part of it. So if that's the case, then this would work reasonably well for you. Regardless, everybody here wants to make sure that the funnels do work. This strategy of understanding that there's clusters of people who buy from you and not broad numbers means that you'll be able to find some fat to trim in your funnel. So that's what we're going to look at now. All right, so that's the idea of audiencing. As always, please feel free to post questions in the chat here. Happy to get interrupted anytime. Makes it for a much more lively way of presenting. Right, so it's probably the most profitable concept in marketing. I think it is. And in the offline world, which is where I kind of learned most of this stuff, you didn't have the benefit of running a $5 campaign or a $10 campaign or even a $1,000 campaign. The cost to launch a product was actually quite expensive. And if you got it wrong, then you'd have easily a very high six-figure, if not a multi, seven-figure loss on your hands. So you'd spend a lot of time in market research, and you'd do product testing, and you do all kinds of stuff like that. And so you spend the bulk of your cost in research, and then you launch and you keep your fingers and toes crossed, and hopefully you didn't get it wrong. That the online guys just don't realize how lucky they are, how easy they have it, where you can just throw anything out there and see if it works. Now that doesn't mean that you get stupid with it, because you'll still lose money or you lose time if you're just willy-nilly throwing crap out there. But you don't have to be so precise like you would be in the offline world, where you're running, let's say, for example, you're doing a retail launch where you're putting a product into, say, Walmart or a Woolworths or a Coles or a Safeway or whatever large supermarket chain you've got in your respective countries. And so you're going to have a whole lot of inventory costs to put into the shelves. You have a whole bunch of costs to get the TV ad produced, and then you launch it, and the damn thing bombs. And so if you look at the cost of all that stuff, it actually gets very, very expensive. So one of the ways, so that's the reason why. Now that's not an issue in the online world. You can obviously go ahead and do something very similar to this. So you get an initial idea of your ideal customer. You can use your funnel hacking type techniques, or you can become an affiliate of an offer that's similar to what you're trying to do, or sort of tangentially related, and use that as a way to learn about what kind of people are converting. There's a whole lot of different ways to do it. Yeah, kids these days, that's right. Your $5 campaign didn't work and you're bitching and moaning. Are you kidding me? That's not risk. You spend 5 minutes on it. Yeah, risk is spending 1 year of your life and then having it bomb on you. That one hurts. All right, so you get some initial idea about who your target customer or customers could be, and then you drive some traffic. You get the data, and then you sort of reverse the whole thing. And so now you look at the data and you say, sort of, who's buying my stuff? So in the case of those of you who are by funnel data, I'm looking at not only the UTM parameters and the concepts and the hooks and the appeals that you are sending in your UTM params. You'd also look at the kind of questions and answers they're giving you, male, female. They'd also be giving you answers around their specific problems that they may have, or aspirations that they things that they aspire to, and all kinds of stuff along the way. While most people who are doing high volume stuff like your solar and all that sort of stuff, you generally don't tend to what's your reason for wanting to reduce your power bill? Those sort of things starts giving you the actual motivation. And my favorite question, which probably I'd like to add on the thank you page, which is sort of what inspired you to want to take action today? Because if you think about it, the in-market audience, so to speak, is only less than 5% of in any market. So you really want to know what triggered that. Maybe it was a power bill that they received today, or perhaps they saw a neighbor who was bragging about how good his solar panels look, or whatever the market may be. And so what you want to do is when you learn those things, you realize, right, so while everybody should get solar because it's going to be cheap power, this is what triggered that person to want to take action today. So when you start adding a question like that, like what inspired you to, or what prompted you to want to get a quote today, those sort of questions start telling you the distribution of ideas, or the distribution or the different concepts that are getting people into the market. Because think about it, now you can go after the 95% of the market that no one is touching, because they haven't quite worked out what the triggers are to get them to become the 5%. So that's, and it's probably, to me, it's the cheapest form of, or the volume, or the most amount of volume that you can get in any market, which is to go after the people that are not in market, which obviously no one wants to because it's too expensive to do it. But yeah, it is expensive when you're presenting a concept that they're not interested in. But if you understood what the triggers are, now you can evoke that, or that emotively in the advertising or the ads and the copy that you're writing, right? So for the copywriters on the call today, that's what we're looking at here. That's what the segment analysis shows you. is that you can see the differences between the people who convert. And you also see a bunch of people that didn't convert. So let's have a look at that now.
Nick, can I just
Yeah.
interrupt for a second? All
Sure.
right, so obviously we talked about the concept at the end of asking the question. Have you ever seen it put at the front of the DT? I know it's an extra obstacle, but you'll get
no. Actually, well, one of the biggest solar funnels that I know of, they have it as their first question.
Yeah, because I just feel you'll get a lot more information faster.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, the difference. Yeah. So, you know what? It's you make a great point, and yes, I should have probably said that. You want to test both, because obviously one is only getting reasons out of people who are successful, but you're not getting the reasons out of people who are not successful, i.e., people who dropped out in the funnel. So getting on the front is obviously much better, but also it's a low threshold question. It's like, hey, what are the big benefits you're looking for today? And so it could be like, oh, I want cheap power. I want a
conversation starter, isn't it? Really, it's
correct. But I haven't seen too many people who are brave enough to want to test that. I mean, the info marketers do it all the time because their markets are much smaller. They're looking at $1 million a year kind of a market, while you guys are looking at $1 million a month to $1 million a day kind of market. So there are differences of scale, which obviously is a consideration. And if you're getting volume without that question, you're like, well, why the hell would I want to add it in? But by adding it in, what you realize is you become more efficient. So perhaps your volume drops a little bit, but you get but your ad spend drops by a proportionally more or a magnitude more. So therefore your lead costs are much lower, even if your lead volume drops a little bit. I hope that kind of makes sense. So that's the point here, is that we're trying to identify the groups of people that are necessarily interested in solar. So I picked solar, and the reason I keep going to solar is because I actually built a fairly large. I built like about 10 funnels in that space, and as part of the research that I did, this was in the U.S. market, so where I said, you know what, solar attitudes research. I Googled something on those lines, and there's a company called Pew Research, which is PEW. They do all kinds of research on all kinds of stuff. So Pew Research is a very famous company in the US, and they produced one about around attitudes around solar. And what was the most fascinating thing is that they found that Republicans get solar as much as the Democrats do, but the reason why they do it is different. Right. And that to me was very interesting, because I was like, wow, so there's actually differences here down to sort of the attitudes to solar. So the Republican side, the conservative side of the aisle, was more interested in getting solar as a way to be in control. That I am in control of my family, or I'm in control of, should I say, the destiny of my family. Right. So more of a provider, that sort of emotional appeal. While on the Democrat side, it was more around, being for the environment, sort of benevolence, that sort of thing. But both got solar, but for different reasons. And that's a great example to show you how, if you had those attitudes being displayed let's say, for example, in your first question, as you put it, Paul, you would see that they both convert, but they convert with different reasons. So now you've got two separate hooks and ideas you can present. So how would you use something like that? Well, one of the ways you could use it is to get a very big database of zip codes, and you would readily available, and the zip codes would have data about whether this is red or blue, and based on that, you would change the headline dynamically. So your decision node would say, is the zip code Republican or Democrat? And if it was Republican, then you'd change it to a headline that was more around being control of power, or you'd have image of a family and all that kind of stuff. While the Democrat one, you'd probably have something like like an environment or something, right? And that would be like the way to separate it out. Now, why is that concept or idea really interesting? Is firstly, it's fully dynamic. Yeah, like so. Let's say if I was trying to funnel hack you, and I came from I don't know, let's say, an area that was whose zip code was at the last election or whatever was, let's say, Democrat. Then I would funnel hack you and go, they're all their traffic is running on the environmental theme. But if I was in a motor vehicle and I'm driving and all of a sudden I've crossed into the, another zip code, which happened to be, Republican or conservative based or conservative side of the political aisle, all of a sudden the headline would change if I just refresh the page again. Right. And so assuming, of course, that the device you had would change the IP address and so on and so forth. And so there you've got, and so you become really difficult to from a competitor perspective, very difficult to challenge as well now, because let's say you've identified 7, 8, 10, let's say you've identified 12 different clusters of these sort of things, and you're changing headlines and hooks and all kinds of stuff in real time based on what you've learned. You are impossible to funnel hack. I may find one of your funnels, but I can't find the other 11. So therefore, even if I try to challenge you by copying your ads, I would have no idea how this is working for you, unless I found the other 11 that existed out there, or the other 9 or 10 or whatever. And the only person who has that knowledge is you, because it's your funnel. And so it becomes a massive hindrance, and you can effectively run a very profitable campaign for years on end or months on end, and be surrounded by your competition, and they have no idea what you're doing. And that's the beauty of it, that you can be in the most hyper competitive market and still not be funnel hacked. And that's what I love about this concept so much, because it's super profitable without doing too many changes and edits. And I think if you watch one of the earlier sessions we've done, there was one that I did where I shared there was 150, I believe it was 3,000 leads a day they're getting, and they've been getting it since 2016 when they first started using leads. So the company's been sold already once over for a nice sum, and they haven't changed the funnel. It's the same funnel that's still running today because of this application of this idea. All right. Right now, how difficult is it to execute this stuff? Oftentimes, when you start talking, segmentation and cluster analysis and all that kind of stuff, it starts, people start glazing over because it looks very geeky. It's not. All right. So most people can't do this because their tracking sucks, which kind of goes into last week, which is the techie stuff we covered, and prior to that was the tracking stuff we covered. So you got to go get both of those right, because now you've you're tracking where they're coming from, including the messages you got in your ads, plus how much further down the funnel they're coming, what kind of questions they're giving you, what kind of answers they're giving you. So now you can start slicing and dicing that information that we so desperately want. So imagine if you knew who was converting and spending the most amount of money, and you also knew their pain, their desires, pain, preferences, location, and device. That's all this information available in your decision tree. There's nothing magical here. I've just phrased it in this way. All of you have access to this data that are using LeadsHook right now. Right? So how would you use the information? You kill the traffic of everyone who is not your ideal lead or customer, because you can see there's this massive group of people that are coming through that just aren't converting. Perhaps it's a geographic bias you see. Let's say everyone from Beverly Hills just doesn't convert. Well, great. We're going to stop running traffic there, right? Or perhaps a certain state, or perhaps a certain hook, or whatever it be, because you're tracking all the information, something will pop up when you start doing this analysis. So you kill the traffic, but they're not necessarily bad leads, or they're not necessarily bad source of traffic. They maybe just don't resonate with this message. So let's say, for example, if my message was all around, empowering yourself to convert, empowering your family for your power bill, but I'm running all that traffic in an area that is all about climate change and making being green, and that could be reflected in the fact that they're not converting. So they're not bad leads. They just need a different message or a different type of way to bring them into your funnel, right? So you give these non-converters another funnel, right? Now you have 2 or more converting funnels, and all of a sudden, when you extend that idea further, especially for those of you that are working in reasonably large markets like debt, solar, roofing, all that sort of stuff, you're bound to find multiple clusters of people that exist in your market, right? So you create audiences of people who converted, and you create audiences of people who did not convert. You try and remove these people from the bidding process, if you can. So essentially, the audience is based on the answers of people that did not convert, right? Because now you've worked out who is not converting, but guess what? They're coming from the device or the answers they gave you or whatever. Well, you can create a group of people around that, and you can tell Google, Facebook, whatever it is, to not send me these types of people. So all of a sudden, your existing funnel is no longer showing ads to that audience, right? That's essentially what we're doing. That's why it's audiencing, right? So, but you got to have your tracking in place. That's the precondition to all of this. Right now, how do you actually execute it? I've shown this a few times in the past, and the reason for that is because I don't want to give away anybody's data. I run into some very, very interesting analysis. So in your case, I would do something very similar, dump all the data. Once you've got your UTM params tracking properly, and if you are on the other side, if you're using a lead distribution system and you are selling the leads to a third party, then pass the leads hook lead ID, which is a unique identifier, to your lead distribution platform. And now you've got a CSV file that you can pull out of your lead distribution platform, do a simple VLOOKUP, and you can also see what prices you're selling the leads at, and especially if you're doing ping post and things of that sort. Is there a way to sync leads hook data with a database? Coming very soon inside leads hook.
Epic. That's live data, all the non-converters as well.
No, this is we're going to give you a webhook to send data back to us, so we can start doing audiences for you. Yeah, that's something in the pipeline.
Amazing.
Right. So
ETA.
I'm sorry.
Estimated time.
ETA. Yeah, let me get back to you. I just have a couple of meetings this week about that. But the data is actually, as you speak right now, the data is actually building up right now. We have it's behind the scenes because we realize we need to build a data set first. So that's actually currently getting built from all the leads that you guys are generating.
Nice.
So,
Very cool.
Right. So simple export of data. You've got all this information here. Now, if you've got lots of data, then you can use some sort of a statistical analysis platform to get this. I'm not a big fan of that for a couple of reasons. Is that firstly, you need someone with data analytical skills and stats and all that stuff, which they're expensive to have to get. But most of the time when you run these campaigns, you just don't have enough data to even get to statistical significance. And so now you're wasting time, needlessly trying to run out any fancy stats. I'd rather you get a very intuitive and playful understanding of the data that you have just by using pivot tables. So in this case, what I've got here is I've got my ad appeal. So let's say if I've got fat loss campaign, I know I'm talking about, losing weight fast, maybe losing weight for an occasion, and so on and so forth, whatever the different hooks and appeals that you come up with. Or you want to pass them in your UTM params or URL parameters. You've captured those, and they're sitting as either appeal A, B, C, D. In your case, obviously you'll have something, a phrase to describe what that ad appeal is. And then I'm slicing the data, in this case, by hair color, income, age, and gender. And what I've just learned from all this information is that male in their 50s or whatever with black hair are the ones that are highest converting for this space here. Now, so let's say if this is real data, in your case, you'd see something very similar based on the information you've got. So firstly, like, who says you can't call out your audience, right? Everyone says, oh, you can't call out your audience on Facebook. Yes, you can. You change the ad copy because that's your target now, and this is what they look like, right? And so I change the ad copy, I change the images, I change the tone, I change the landing page copy, right? I take this learning to other platforms, right? I will also test negative audiences, right? Which is where you fire in different events for different types of people. So by what I mean by here is that, let's say you've uncovered an audience that is not your audience, and you want to remove those people. So you can fire a different parameter or even a different event if you wanted to show that is a different audience. And then now you can build a funnel just for them. At the same time, you can use that to remove from the bidding process. So you put them as a negative audience, or an exclusion is probably the better way to put it, which is like here, right? So you'd fire the different types of lead events with different parameters, and you'd build an audience around the ones you want to keep versus the ones you don't want. Right. So you stop paying for, and the next thing you do is obviously because you're tracking everything, you'd want to stop paying for your fake or fraud traffic. And sometimes, because the thing is that once you start tracking at this level, you can start identifying this data here. So on this day, this area marked A, it had almost 95%. This is actually, I believe it's an insurance funnel. They're spending a few mil a month. And they've got on that day there's about almost 90% fraud on that day. Now, in that case, imagine if you had 20% fraud and you went all the way 60%. So you've had a 3x increase in your fraud. You'd have a really, I mean, your funnels would stop converting, right? And they didn't convert because your ads were bad, or your leads were bad, or the audience was bad, or whatever. Audience is bad actually because it's getting fake. So you want to take that data, and you wanna put those in a negative audience as well, right? Which you can. So that's the whole point. You can actually put these guys in a negative audience as well to remove them, and that's probably the only way in which you can remove fraud from the bidding process. It would be nice if Google and Facebook did that for us, but they don't, because if you're looking at this data here, so let's assume, for argument's sake, that 20% is average across the board of fraud traffic. Let's take for YouTube, for example, right? Like, can you imagine them taking a hit on 20%? Like, they actually remove that? That would be a significant amount of revenue that they were losing. Now, can you imagine if that was if the average is 60%? I don't think it's that high, but let's assume that it is. I mean, imagine taking a haircut of 60% in your revenue. I mean, your share price would tank, right? So I'm not, obviously we don't know if that's the reason why this is the case, but the fact that that they don't know this is fake or fraud seems a little bit hard to believe, if they even know where the hell you've been last Friday with the ad they run at you. So yeah, right. I'll leave it at that. Now, the other reason why I'm suggesting to track this is because when a new fraud turns up, it doesn't get caught for some time, actually. And I'll share very shortly. I believe it's either in this week or next week's call, but I'll show you how to make sure that when fraud does turn up, how do you catch it if it's a new fraud, because none of the tools will capture them. So this is was a fraud scheme called a Vast Flux. What they were doing here, they were firing multiple video ads, and you were paying for the impression. So they would just layer up all the video ads, and then all the ads would get clicked. And so what would end up happening is, let's say if and in this case, it wasn't even a human being. They sent a bot to click the ads on a page that they controlled, which had 100 video ads being presented. So let's say you've just paid for 100 impressions, but because the ads are getting interacted with, they send a positive signal back to the ad network that, oh, these are really, really good ads. So they show more of it, if that makes sense. Right. And so that's this is a way in which you end up blowing a massive amount of your budget in your ad spend, and there's no human being looking at it. Right. So you're paying for impressions that a human will never see. Right. So dealing with the fake traffic, you give them a real experience. And because you understand what the audiences are doing, you start building audiences of this fake stuff here. So inside leads, we've got this threat level stuff going on here. Junk traffic doesn't enter them. So the first thing you want to do is you can actually remove those. So you would only send the good stuff to your client, or to your CRM, or to your lead distribution platform, and all the junk one, you just take it there. Sorry, the one mistake I made here, there should be two separate results pages. You want to fire different events for those, because obviously you want to identify your fake ones to your real ones. So you're not necessarily bidding on the fake ones as well. So you want to separate those two out. So that's a mistake there. I should have had them as two separate nodes. All right. So that's the first thing. Now, why do you want to give them a real experience? Is because you don't want them to know that you know that they're fake, right? Because then they'll change their tactic and they'll want to do something else. So you want to give them the full experience of going down your funnel, except you don't send those leads elsewhere. But you take them out at the ad level, at the targeting level, I should say, by removing them as an audience itself, like a negative audience. That's the way to do it. This is Facebook. Looked at a user out of New Zealand. We were looking at the ad spend, and I was a bit curious as to see why their cost per lead was so high. And I said, you know what? Outside the area, ad spend is a big problem. And so I know that one or two of you on the call, I think, have already started doing this, where we looked at the data and there was quite a bit of traffic outside of New Zealand. They were bidding just New Zealand. The way to fix this is basically you add in every other country as a negative or as an exclusion, rather than, so normally when you set up a Facebook ad in this example, you'd say, yeah, I want to bid on New Zealand or US or whatever it is. But you never put every other country as exclusion. So you put those as exclusion. It won't go to 0, but it won't be 30% either. It'll bring it back down to about 10 to 15%. So it halves it in most cases. All right, that kind of completes the audiencing part of the presentation, and I'll open it up for Q&A, and then Q&A about what we've just seen here, and then we open up to any other questions that you might have. So, any questions on this stuff, on audiencing, audiences, fraud traffic?
Hey,
yeah.
Nick, this is Eric.
Yes.
I do have a question regarding that.
Sure.
So when it comes to fraud, I mean, and/or lead quality, as an example, let's say we're sending traffic or we're getting traffic from affiliates to a funnel, right?
Yep.
Lead is coming in, it's quote unquote real data. Let's just say it's a real lead.
Yep.
But then we look at a disposition report
Yep.
the next day or 72 hours later, whatever it is, next week, give it some time to kind of warm up. But you notice that the contact rates are very low with the majority or a big percentage of the leads that come through.
Yep.
And so is there any way to identify
So there's two things you want to do. First one is you can demand phone verification. And in this case, what you would do is you would then obviously, pay a bit more for it. But then at the same time, you go to the client and say as well, hey, listen, you know what, if you're sick and tired of having your people dial numbers all day and never get anyone contacting, then and that's been a usual solution that I've shared with quite a few people now at high volume. And they're normally what they do, because think about it, of all the costs in an organization, in a sales organization, it's calling out for conversions is the highest cost, because you pay commissions plus they're sitting there and occupying 50 grand, 100 grand, 150 grand in wages and salaries. So they actually are a very expensive cost center. So in most cases, you would say, rather than having 25 people just dialing all the time and getting a very low contact rate, I'd rather just have 10 and just get like a 90% contact rate, right? And so that's the argument that I would present to the client, and that would be the first point of call. So phone verification, the double phone verification, which is where an SMS goes out when anyone enters the phone number, that's the first thing. But before this, even, you want to make sure that you're doing your GenAI, to trusted form and all that stuff. You won't believe this. I was someone consulted with me on a pharma funnel. These guys do lead gen for pharma companies for clinical trials, and they're getting, so they had an internal team, and the internal team is getting the leads for, let's say, about $20. The affiliates are selling them for 10. They're like, forget the internal team. We're going to fire the internal team, and we're going to go for the affiliates. Well, guess what? They weren't collecting the trusted form or the GenAI certificates. And so I said, how do you know the exclusive? And they said, what do you mean? And I said, how do you know that this lead has not been harvested and sold 20 times, 25 times over? That's why they're giving it to you for $10. And they're like, we never really even thought of that. So they're going back now, realizing that there is no trusted form here, and they're dialing. This is US leads, and they're trying to do SMS campaigns on thousands of leads without a trusted form. Can you believe what's going to happen? I mean, this is litigation 101. So
Totally.
so the point is, you got to demand that. That's the first thing, obviously. Second thing is you can bring in phone verification, which is one way to keep everybody honest, because someone has to, gets a 4-digit code on their mobile and they re-enter the in, and that normally cuts out a lot of the shenanigans and the crap that's been going on. Now, because Trusted Form and Genea, these are client-side libraries, they are hackable. You can play games with it to generate certificates that perhaps are not real. It takes a little bit of advanced, coding type knowledge to be able to do it. But if someone is selling you, harvested leads for $10 and they're not generating them, then that is entirely within the reach to want to do that. So that's why the phone verification ends up is a second touch point that's there. The third one is,
Okay.
which is what I'll share next week, which is what is the average norms in your disposition that is acceptable, and where isn't it? Right now, of course, you can use your fraud ID, your third-party fraud APIs in this example here. But once again, if a third party is generating it, and it's a little bit difficult to work out if it's fraud after the fact, because you'll need that scripting on the page itself where it's being generated. So yeah. So unfortunately, not you're a bit limited by what you can do. Obviously, you can scrub them if you find them to be fraud. There are some third-party APIs you can send your data to. It comes back to say whether this is real or fraud, and you'd have to scrub it. And I think if you guys are running any of the large CPA network softwares, then this sort of things is already built in. But if you're finding it is still much lower than what it should be, then he's got to go back to the affiliates and saying, guys, you know what, your quality is too low for us to continue with you. Would be obviously the more pragmatic solution in the longer term.
Appreciate it. Any recommendations on like phone verification softwares?
Yeah. So if you are going to use it inside LeadSoup, then it's already available. So I'll just share that with you now. And because we've already built it in for you, we've got millions of leads that have been done using this. So feel free to use it. Let me just quickly log in here.
What does it check for?
It's just a node. It's a node. Let's just log in here. Now log in every time before the call and logs me out as soon as I want to use it. All right, it's this one here. It says this one here, phone verification, like so. And what you basically do is you just set up your Twilio integrations here. So admin integrations, Twilio phone verification. And it's just an SSID that you do. And there's a bit of a setup to do on most of the setup is on the Twilio side, not much on the LeadSoup side. And what happens then is you would put that after the phone number. So you'd select the field that you're using, its phone number, and so on and so forth, whatever the integration is, and yada, yada, yada. And you basically write your text saying, people who verify. So you want to give a good reason why copy, in this case, in your funnel. So things like, people who verify, join the VIP line, or their applications get expedited or whatever. You want to use some sort of reason why copy to rather than, so like, don't say things like verify your phone number, right? Just make it a little bit nicer, tied to the big benefit that they're about to receive. Think about, they've just given you their phone number, so they're actually a very, very hot lead, and you just want to let them know, hey, listen, we just want to make sure that before we connect you with the right sales agent, we just want to make sure that when they contact you, that they're able to contact you and ensure that we also comply with with regulations, because you're dealing with a good old American company that has got legal obligations, so on and so forth, and that is usually gets you almost a zero drop off. Actually, if you are framing the phone verification really, really well, the fake leads just drop off automatically, or at least most of them do.
Wow.
Right. So that's, yeah. So you would put that after your phone number node. So let's assume that's a phone number node, and you would connect it that way, and then like so. So those who don't get through, obviously were fake, and they just drop off automatically. So it's seamlessly built in. It's right inside LeadSoup itself. I'll share the article on the help here. And that way, if you want to give it to your techie to carry it on, it's called 100%. And there you go, 100% contactable leads. And that's it. It's been, as you can see, inside LeadsHook since 2020. So it's a fairly old feature used by quite a few people inside LeadsHook. So once again, this is a big chunk. You don't want to bring it in first off. You want to test everything out, just make sure that everything's working. And in your case, you might find that you're not getting any fake leads at all, or very small number to really warrant getting down this road. But if you find that, oh, you know what, geez, we were still getting a lot of fake leads, then you want to introduce verification in to get rid of them. So it's not something I'd use on day one, unless. So I have jumped onto calls with you new users who are like, listen, we're doing 10,000 leads a day, and fraud is a big problem for us, or like uncontactable numbers is a big problem for us. Great, use this straight away, right out of the box, because that's what you're here for, to really clean up your leads, because there's a massive cost associated with letting bad leads through to the sales team. Because now, rather than selling, they're sitting around dialing. And that's just a really stupid way of using very, very valuable resources for stuff that makes no money. So that's the reason for this. In fact, there's a couple of calls that I've been on with clients where we're actually talking to the end user, the call center people, and I've seen like the lead gen sell a 30% increase in payout with the client. And the strategy basically was very simple. It's like, well, listen, how many people do you, what percentage of your calls get contacted? And they're like, oh, it's 20%, 30%. Okay, well, what would you do if it was 90%? He's like, oh, we'd send half the sales team home. Great, send half the sales team home. You just pay us 30% more. And they're like, okay, fine, we'll test it out for the next, whatever, X many leads, and then we'll see what we do. So, and that usually gets them over the line, because then they're not stupid either. Like, the only reason why they have so many people is because the sheer volume they have to go through to get contacted. Even with auto dialers and all that other nonsense, end of the day, it's still wasting time. So you're better off just getting rid of the crap in the funnel itself. So by the time it gets to the sales team, it's all been cleaned up.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do. Last question for me, it's kind of regarding this as well. Have you seen any issues where some of these affiliates that are pushing traffic to a funnel are utilizing like aged data some way, somehow, and then putting that data into a form fill, and then it still generates a real, quote unquote, let's call it a lead with a real trusted form ID? Have you seen
yeah, absolutely. It's totally doable. I've never shared it publicly, but yes, totally doable, because it's client side. But think about it, like trusted form sits as a just like a pixel basically. And anytime you have that, and if you know enough about scraping of information, obviously they're not scraping here, but if you know how to do scraping, then what you're doing is you're using multiple residential IPs to be able to scrape from. That's how scrapers work. So you set up a network where you're scraping from all, and you can hire those. Here, I'll see if I can.
Is there a way to prevent that or identify that type of lead?
Yeah. So what you could do is you could use a third-party verification. Josh, are you recalling the name of the one that that Anthony from LeadByte recommended? He's mentioned it a few times.
Third-party one.
Yes, it's a third-party one. Let me see if I just go fraud check for web traffic. Hopefully the name pops up.
Because I think Active Prospect has something in their lead conduit.
Okay, maybe.
That's
Yeah, there you
trusted
go.
forms.
Yeah, this one here. Anura is the one that he recommends. It's pricey though. It's I think minimum of it's about 3 or 4K a month or something like that. So I think from memory, don't quote me on that, but it's something on those lines. So yeah, I mean, whenever you see this without pricing, you know you're gonna get a big bill. So it's worth a check. Perhaps you can reach out to them and say, hey guys, could we could you give us a 30-day or 15-day access or something just to test it out and make sure it's catching things out? And that would be one way to validate that. And obviously, if it is, then if you're doing lots of volume through affiliates, it might just be worth the extra 3-4 grand if you're doing thousands of leads a day to use something like this. Now, this is not the only solution. It's just one of the solutions. This is one of the solutions that they recommend. I've had LeadsHook users who are using this saying, yep, it works quite nicely. And I've had LeadsHook users tell me it's just expensive crap that I don't need. So so I'm not going to say that it doesn't work or does work. I know people who've used it, and I know people who've hated it as well. So just, I guess, test it out yourself and see how it works out for you. And that's that. Now we do have our own fraud checking inside LeadsHook as well, and we use a third-party system to do it. Once again, ours is nowhere as expensive what these guys charge. We reached out to all of these people, and they're all like super pricey. So it didn't make sense for us at the price point that we want to sell LeadsHook. If we added one of these guys, then we'd have to kind of double our price. Most of it would be and so that didn't make any sense for us. So we're not using it. But easily integratable. We got lots of users who do end up adding these kind of. The other one to use is IPQS, which is IPQS.
Yep,
This
heard of
is,
it.
So that's the other one. They're pretty solid too.
I think
we were
they're
going to add this inside LeadsHook, but the latency was a little bit too slow for us for the scale that we needed. So one of the things you can do. So here's my take on these tools, and so I don't know if I should publicly say this. All right, I'm just going to pause for a second. So anyone watching this on YouTube, email me.
Thank you.
All right. So anyway, so that's the way to not pay a lot of money here. All right. A lot of tricks.
That's cool. Very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else? We got Paul, we got John, we got two Johns. Hey, John, how you doing? John Gallagher, Team Canada. What's going on?
Hey, Nick. It's good. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks. Good to see you.
Good. You got time to touch base this week at all?
Yeah. So, any questions? Any follow up on this stuff?
No, not right now.
No?
I got a couple
Okay,
of questions that probably private.
Okay. All right. Done. Just message me then. Cool. Awesome.
We're watching hockey right now, Stanley Cup.
All right. Okay. Well, enjoy. I hope Toronto wins.
They're gone.
Yeah, and that goes okay.
Hey Nick, with the higher threat level ones, why wouldn't you just do them for OTP?
Yes, you can do that. You can that's the other way of managing those. Absolutely. So yes, you can definitely do that. But not everybody wants to use OTPs because they're like, oh, it's gonna crush my It's so funny how people are scared of using it. Actually, they it's really fear driven. And the point is that whenever they add it in, they say, it smashed my conversions. But when you look at the node, they say stuff like verify your phone number. It's like, come on, man, are you kidding me? This is lead gen 101. So do it properly, and the OTP is probably going to be sufficient actually. Yeah. So that's the other way of doing it. So you don't have to necessarily trigger any of these fraud type tools. You can just use the OTP as your to do the verification. And that
What do you mean by OTP?
So I prefer. Sorry, what'd you say?
What's OTP? What do you mean by
Oh,
OTP?
sorry. So this thing here, the one-time password.
Got it.
Yeah. Sorry, that's I prefer OTPs over these tools because these tools have got error rates in them, right? And so they can go wrong. OTP, you can't go wrong. In the sense that it is a live human being that's doing it. Now, even if it's fraud, it dramatically reduces it to a large extent because it's going to be a live call. Now, once again, to go back to Eric's question, how do you know they're real? Yeah, well, requesting OTPs is going to be one way to do it. But once again, if they're giving you the lead completed, then you would rely on them to do OTPs. So now the only way to verify if these leads are real or not is essentially the conversion rates and the contact rates that your client's experiencing. And if they're not experiencing those, then you just have to go back to the affiliates and say, guys, your stuff's just not connecting enough. But to answer your original question, yes, it is fully hackable with trusted form IDs, even with those. Yeah. So those aren't evidence of non-fraud. They're just evidence of a really smart person who's been able to hack it. Now, either it could be real or it could be not. And so and the way to do it would be, you know what, I'm going to pause recording this one too. I don't want to teach people this stuff.
Or ping posts, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So just I guess that just kind of explains like how you can do it at scale. And it's not that difficult, but I just showed you here. It's not. It just takes someone with half a brain, and they'll be able to do it without too many issues. So I think we're recording again. Yes, we are. Okay, cool. Right. So any other questions? Because this is what was happening with that company that spoke about the people who were doing clinical trials. Is because they feel it's able to do it at such a cheap cost, and at volume too. They're like, yeah, how many leads do you want? We can give you thousands of leads for whatever, $10 or $5. It was a stupidly small number. And so the one of the guys who works for the company, I know him really well, and he asked me, because what do you think? He reached out to me. He said, listen, this sounds too good to be true. I said, yeah. I said, they probably just, I said, are they giving you trusted form? No. I was like, okay, well, then you guys are asking for trouble. Yeah. Because so how that funnel works, and this is why it's a scam, is you get paid $10 up front, and then months later, when that person joins a clinical trial, right? A month later, right, you get paid some sort of a top-up payment. I'm like, I don't think that really gives a crap about what's going to happen 10 months from now. They've got the $10, they're out of here. Paul, you had a question? Nope. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I was writing notes, Nick. Sorry.
Okay, yeah, no worries. Cool.
I have a question.
Yep, go.
So Trusted Form now came up with a Trusted Form Insight, I think. So they give you like you can buy multiple data points from the Trusted Form. Like I think you can do it from your tools as well, Lizook. Like see how long a user stay on the page.
Yep.
You can see if it was like typed data or like like what is it, like
autofill,
automatically filled.
Yeah.
So I know that you can time like a user session on the Lizook, but can you do can you see if it was autofilled or if it was like typed?
Yeah. Not that we have that at the moment, but that's not a difficult thing to add, actually. But that's a nice idea. We can definitely add that in. Now, but having said that, if I was smart enough, I would just write a very small script to type it in. So it's not a, like someone using that thing I just showed you, they could easily code that up. So it won't be sort of autofill. You can simulate a typed thing on the form. And in fact, we saw that. So, okay, so there was a Malaysian company that was hired to go after one of the Lizook users. Or maybe their clients, I can't remember how it, and it came to us and he said, hey, listen, we're getting a lot of bad leads coming through here. So I said, I was like, nothing really picked it up. And so they were routing through things like what I just showed you. But what allowed us to catch them is that they had 1,000 different IPs, but they had 500 leads per 1,000 IPs. That's how we caught the thing. And then we went behind the scenes and, we did some stuff with the dev team, and we realized they were all going to one data center in Malaysia. And then when we looked up the addresses there, we found a company that does, guess what? Lead generation. And so it seemed like in that case, what had happened was they'd hired humans to replicate this. And if that's the case, then they would all be typed. So they were human bots, if you want to call it that. So yeah.
So they
Yeah,
buy
so
database of,
exactly. So it's yes, it removes a really stupid person who was doing this stuff, but it does not when it gets to something a little bit more sophisticated. And I guess with AI and all this kind of stuff popping up, it's going to get harder and harder and harder. So next week's call, actually, do beyond that. I'm going to be sharing with you the most foolproof method of all this stuff. All right, is to how to really track that and have enough tolerance for false positives, which normally these tools will end up either killing too much or too little. And so I'll be sharing something. It's the most pragmatic solution that I know of. It's so I'll be sharing that in next week's call, for a bit of an open loop for next week. Hopefully, at least this week 8 people have turned up. Usually it's only 2. So we're getting better.
Or it's coming out slowly.
It's we've 4x'd.
Nick, are there replays of this?
Absolutely, all on YouTube.
Oh, YouTube. Okay.
Yeah. The YouTube channel. Yeah, Lead Hook.
Okay. Okay.
Let me see if I can grab that. YouTube. All right, what do we got here? We have YouTube. Kind of will help to view your channel. There you go. It's at Lead Hook now. So there you go. That's all the calls right there.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. The only reason why I wasn't putting stuff on YouTube is because YouTube banned our account for having, bad content. And this is like 3 or 4 years ago. And I was like, what do you mean? I've only videos about lead generation. So I wasn't sure why we got banned. I was like, oh, screw you, man. I'm not going to put my stuff there. So anyway, for that reason, I stopped.
I think I know what to do next time someone asks me about marketing. Go watch all the Lead Hook videos. Don't contact me until you finish them.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? It's we've got about 30 or so videos there now of these conversion lab calls. I mean, all credit to Paul. It was his idea, actually. So Paul's on the call here. He said, hey, you should do this weekly call thing called Conversion Lab. And I was like, I don't know. Do I have to do another call? And so it's like, okay, screw it. You know what? But they've become quite enjoyable. I get to, because I see stuff every week. So in fact, next week, the week after, I'll actually share this. So I'm writing this massive article for Alan Sultanic's, quiz funnels thing. He's plugged Lead Hook or he's mentioned Lead Hook a few times. So I wanted to do an article. So what I was doing was I actually collected quite a few quiz funnels, including the ads and the landers and all that sort of stuff. So I'll be sharing that. We'll go through how to break down what the funnel is talking about, the hook and the appeal part of it, which no one ever does, because most of the funnels you see, hey, just put a quiz funnel, which is the mechanical part of this whole bit. That's the but that's not what makes the money. It's the psychology part that we want to look at. So anyway, I'll be looking at that, not next week, but the week, not next week. Next week, we're going to do finance. The week after, we're going to do the team that helps you execute all this. And then the week after that, we'll go down that rabbit hole. And I'll share a bit about that. Cool. Any other questions? Nope. Right, well, guys. All right, if there's no more questions, we'll do it next week, same time, same place. We'll be looking at finance. Yeah, we're looking at finance next week, so I'll share quite a bit about that and what saves you money. All right.
Thank you, Nick.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Nick.
See you next week. Thank you. Bye. Bye.